Simon Hicks.
They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that
I
body.
think I mentioned, what, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FYFFE, the podcast. Here on episode 8 of the podcast. Hard to believe that we're 8 episodes in, and the further along we go, the closer we get, unfortunately, to the end, because all good things must come to an end, and they usually do. But I am proud to announce that our title sponsor, Froggy Freeze, is back with us for another month. And that's who brings us the podcast each and every week, brings it to you. Froggy Freeze, I want to tell you a little bit more about them. I'll do that in just a moment as we introduce everyone on the crew tonight. Greg Mears with us. Drew Sims and Jeremy Johnson. Work situation keeping Jonathan away, but we hope to have him back. Of course, we get one episode where everybody's on, and then we're back to 3 or 4. I mean, that's how it goes. Everybody's got different situations. If I look a little different, it's because I'm actually in studio at the office, and so if it sounds a little different on my end, I apologize from that. If you hear some kind of whirring or buzzing behind me, that's all this radio equipment that you can't actually see. It's behind me down here on the backside. We are recording this during a time where I had to be at the studio late. I'll just say it like that, not to worry, folks. But nevertheless, we're pressing on. We're pressing on, and so is the folks at Froggy Freeze. Locally owned vendors, 2 retired educators spanning 3 generations of 5 high school graduates, that is. They're fully licensed, insured. They've got their updated health permits. They're Safe Serve certified, or I said that backwards, Serve Safe certified. And again, they've got 3 trailers. They can be at any event that you need them for. I actually have a family reunion coming up later this week, and I did pitch the idea of getting the truck there. It wasn't, with a lot of enthusiasm from the old crowd, shall we say. But I tell you what we're going to have to do, guys. We got to get out there to Froggy Freeze and get us a good tasting treat. We've gone over exactly what our favorites are. I'm a strawberry banana guy. I know you guys like pina colada and birthday cake and the like. But I tell you what, they've got 35 flavors that will span just about anybody's palate. They could please you, and if you just happen to be cold, I mean, my goodness, the day of recording this, it got up to near 80 degrees. But if you still happen to be cold, they got cider, hot chocolate, coffee, things of that nature. In fact, I'm drinking a good old cup of coffee right in here out of a black pot of coffee there. And give them a call if you want to get them to your venue. You can also find them at 5 events all the time, 256-717-7239. Again, 256-717-7239, that number for Froggy Freeze, our title sponsor. And again, thank you so much to Miss Johnson and Levon and the whole crew at Froggy Freeze for coming back and bringing the folks FYFFE, the podcast. Coming up tonight on this episode, again, a newer segment, How It Works, Position Groups with Drew and Greg. And this time we're going to be diving into running backs and DBs. At most schools, those are 2 different positions. But at one school in particular that we like to cover, they kind of go hand in hand. We'll tell you more about that in a moment. We'll also give you an NCAA tournament update, maybe surprise you with part of that conversation as well as get into the Where Was Greg t-shirt segment, 10 minutes of crap, and what's upcoming at FYFFE. And with that, let's get the conversation rolling here with Position Groups, How It Works with Drew and Greg. And like I said a moment ago, guys, we're talking running backs and DBs. And I'm not going to pick which one of you to start tonight. I'll just let you go with it. At FYFFE, it's different than all these other schools. You know, people look maybe not so much in 1, 2, and 3A in Alabama as much as you do when you get to 4, 5, 6, and even 7A, especially where a DB and a running back are not the same person. They're not playing on both sides of the ball. At a place like FYFFE, you have to count on one kid being able to play multiple positions. And usually the way that Coach Benefield, Drew, and I guess I will start with you on this because I mentioned Coach Benefield, he likes to use those skill position players on offense as sort of DBs in the backfield because usually those are your faster guys that can get down the field faster. Tell me about what goes into that for a running back and a defensive back kind of playing both sides of the ball at FYFFE.
Yeah, we kind of talked a little last week about kind of different days are different. You go over different things for the week. So on Mondays, you do defense. So all your DBs, that's your safeties and your cornerbacks. And sometimes your outside linebackers, just depends on what the opponent may be running that week. If the outside linebacker may have to jump out there and cover a slot receiver, they may go with the DBs for that day or anything, something like that. Really, it's a lot of that. Well, I was not a DB, but a lot of the drills they do, just kind of from the outside looking in, is a lot of high pointing the ball, getting to the ball, finding the receiver, and then getting turned back around to not get that pass interference. Really, it's a lot about your footwork. Flipping your hips the right way. Sometimes that's hard as a receiver or a DB. Getting your hips the right way, getting your body facing the right way, stuff like that. I'm sure Greg can talk more about the drills they did as DBs.
Yeah, that's a little bit more up my alley there than last week. But it's just a lot like you said too, Drew. I mean, our two starting, our fullback and our tailback were our middle linebacker and one of the outside linebackers. So you say things stay the same. But it's exactly what you were talking about. We would run routes so that we worked on our receivers and defensive backs at the same time. Again, we would go left side, right side, but the receivers would be first running our routes. What little bit of a passing tree that we had, route trees that we had. And then me as a defensive back, I would be trying to guard them. And it's exactly like you said, it was more about position. It was more about, getting your hips turned the right way. Because, again, like I said, we hardly ever had to worry about people passing the ball a whole lot unless it was just a quick out. Every now and then somebody'd run a post or a skinny post. So we were really, practicing a lot of coming up and our assignments on some type of option. So, pitch man, outside linebacker with the quarterback like that, making sure that we knew what our responsibility was. Because, you saw it 2 years ago against Plainview when they really ran that option. Well, if you do not take your man and you go for the ball, it's going to be a very, very long run. So, and that's, again, like we said, we split up in groups, and that was pretty much what we did. When it came to the running back part, we actually would run what we call eye openers. I think the same thing as an Oklahoma drill, where we would set up the tackling dummies, and it's maybe a 3-foot, range, and there was the quarterback handing off and a linebacker and two linemen, and that was it. That running back was having to go between those two dummies. So it would open your eyes too, man. You would a lot of hitting going on back in those days.
All right, I'm going to ask a question because this provides us an opportunity. Drew, you used a term that I've heard both you and Greg specifically use during ball games at specific points. Flip your hips or turn your hips. I'm not going to ask you to stand up and give us an example per se, but could you kind of describe what you mean to the folks? I mean, in more brains than probably that are better than mine, they probably understand kind of a basic idea or a basic concept of what it means to turn your hips. But what kind of impact does that have if you don't turn your hips the right way or flip your hips? Just explain that to us, if you would.
Well,
sorry, go ahead. Now, I was going to say, I actually had trouble with that my first couple of games. And basically what it is depending on what route, which direction the receiver's going, you've got to flip your hips that direction so you can stay up with him. If you get turned the wrong way, they're going to blow right past you. So that's really what it was. In the first couple of games, luckily the quarterbacks weren't too good, but I was getting beat pretty badly. I was on the verge of riding the bench for the rest of the year because I didn't understand I didn't comprehend exactly which way to turn, or I would be late turning them. So you're basically going to turn and run with them whichever way it is. And if you don't get those hips turned where you can actually run with them, they're gonna blow right past you.
Yeah, it's all about position. You keeping in your hip pocket. Really, I guess it's more of a basketball term, but that's kind of what you're trying to do as a DB, and at least in man coverage, and in zone when there's somebody in your zone. But you're trying to stay with that receiver, and like Greg said, I mean, if somebody's running one way and you turn your hips the other way, if you can catch up with them, you're a freak athlete.
How do you teach this? Obviously, this is not something necessarily that I wouldn't think because I didn't play. Imagine that. How do you teach something like that? How do you get that across to a young person? I don't think that would be something that would come natural.
Well, I think me and Greg are a little bit the same here. My stubborn self, I learned by messing up more than more than more than getting it right. So a lot of times it's just a matter of doing it in a game or in practice or however you can do it.
Is it I guess so basically it's a repetition thing is what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you get used to the routes. I would assume, right, Greg?
Yeah.
I mean, I know as a linebacker, like if I knew where my zone was, I knew what routes were coming into that zone. So I kind of had an idea, not necessarily every time, but you had an idea of where somebody could be coming from.
Well, we not only turn our hips, but we turn our attention this time back to the NCAA tournament. And folks, you see him. He's on the screen right now wearing his Alabama basketball hat. That's because, like Charles Barkley said, roll tide. I don't know how he gets so high pitched like that, but Alabama makes its first ever trip to the Final Four. And congratulations for making your first Final Four ever. Here's your prize. You get UConn. UT falls to Purdue in what was a physical game. And then possibly the one that folks may be a little surprised we're going to talk about for a moment. Caitlin Clark goes off for 40 against LSU in a rematch from the national championship last year. Let's talk about all of these. Let's get the Alabama part out of the way because as many folks have, I'm sure, have picked up by now, we're all Alabama fans to some degree on this podcast, and we do use a thing called reverse psychology to pull them through. That's our thing. That's our thing, although somehow, some way that reverse psychology has reversed itself onto who's doing what in the group, but that's okay.
Yes.
It's been working still. Guys, your first impressions of Alabama getting to the Final Four. JJ, I'll start with you since you are the basketball guy on this podcast. Give me your first impression.
So for all the people who got upset about me making mention of Bucky McMillan and all my gripes, I come to you with my hat in my hand and say, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. I will say this. Players play games, and these guys, it has finally clicked for them in this run. I think the message that I do believe Nate Oates, I don't think he's ever preached don't play defense. I think he's preached it all year long. I think it's finally registered with these guys. This team is half as talented as last year's team.
Agreed.
But they may be a better team at this point right now than they were last year. These guys have showed up to play when it matters, and and so you know what? I'll be the first one to say if I'm wrong. I griped all year. Some of it was just in jest. Some of it was because I knew it would get a rise out of people. Some of it was reverse psychology. But I think for us guys here, we found our groove. Because I found myself toward the end of both of the last two games, North Carolina and Clemson, being the only one that was optimistic about our chances. Wait a minute, before we move on, we're done. Yep, we're done. This is not looking good. Pringle's getting on my nerves. I wish he wasn't on the team. I wish he'd get lost, Adam Ward. What else? Let's name it. But we have found it, and I'm still optimistic. Y'all notice I wasn't texting near as much during those two games. So
it's true.
I was showing people, look at this. These guys have been on me all year about being so negative about Alabama. Look at this. Second quarter, we're done. Drew, we're done.
We're so beat down by 20. We're going to lose by 20.
Yeah, that's right. All I got to say is let's keep it up to the national championship. So I'm going to continue to be positive. You guys trash them, throw off on them. I think it's working for us, just like the Alabama team. I think us as a team, we found our groove and hit our stride right now. So I'm ready. Roll Tide. Let's raise the national championship against probably the best team that's ever played in the last 20 years.
Yeah,
they're good.
UConn may be better now than what they were this time last year as national champions last year.
Gosh.
Drew, you and I were getting to watch that game together on Saturday night. And for those who didn't see it, I don't know that I'm confident to share it again, at least not on our page, but we had us a ball. Our thing was, and you guys don't know this, Greg and JJ, Drew started doing his taxes at halftime.
Like
And
right
I
before
kept
halftime.
like right before halftime, and for pretty much the whole second half, I would not let him come out of that kitchen. I kept saying, "Get in there and do your taxes," because every time he'd step out,
Yeah.
Drew, that Clemson would start climbing their way back in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he would step out, Alabama goes and hits 3 threes in a row.
Seems like every time I stepped in there, Joe Girard pulled a Mark Sears and pulled up from the daggum logo.
So
Drew,
I will
us your
say
emotion
this.
on that.
Now go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I was going to be the first naysayer. So if you got more good to say it before I
No,
start.
I just will say, I just will say that the team itself. Let me be over the top positive, and then you guys let them have it. But they showed a lot of resiliency. I think I know it's Grand Canyon, and I was a little skeptical. Grand Canyon, all that. That was a very physical, tough game that they could have shut it down and folded and lost that game. They got down double digits against UNC, the number 1 seed. It didn't look good for a little bit, and y'all were right. Of course, I think Drew said we're done when we were still. I looked at the score like we're up 4. What are you talking about? but UNC, a lot of resiliency. So I really like that going into this game because I feel like they may match up better with UConn than these other teams, possibly if there's a way to do that. I'm sure we'll talk about the 30-point run after half with the UConn game. But anyway, roll Tide.
I think
I'm really
that's
happy.
more Illinois than it is Connecticut.
I do too.
I don't get me wrong. I think Connecticut. I like y'all. I picked them to win. I think they're the best team in college basketball.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's close.
Right.
I'll say this though: if Alabama comes out like they did to start that Clemson game, we are for sure done. We will be down by 30. Because I don't think even given a week, I think Nate Oates proved it against UNC. Give him a week, I think he could come up with a really good game plan.
Yeah.
Even given a week, I don't think Alabama's defense, as good as they've been playing, I don't think they have the personnel to stop UConn. I think we're going to have to score and keep up with them. Because I don't know. I know UConn's lost some, but I don't know if they're mentally tough enough. And I don't know this because I hadn't watched them a whole lot. But I don't know if they're mentally tough enough. If you can stay with them the whole game and beat them down the whole game, if they can stay in it.
Well,
they probably
can. I'll tell you one thing that I read on, maybe it was earlier today. It might have been yesterday. I don't remember. They have had 2 matchups with a certain team that Tennessee played earlier in the tournament in the Creighton Blue Jays. And they went 1-1 against Creighton. They ended up winning the first one by like 15, 18, something like that. And then lost the second matchup by 19 points. And in that matchup, Creighton hit 15 3-pointers against
there it is right there.
UConn. And so that tells me that Alabama is going to have to get UConn's big men out onto the perimeter and force them to guard the perimeter, get them out of the box. And by saying that, you're also saying that you've got to make them, much like they were able to do with North Carolina, make them play Alabama's pace. What was it? I think UConn is like the second slowest or the slowest pace of game in all of college basketball. So they like to slow the game down. You're not going to see UConn scoring, average 90, 95 points a game. They're up there in the high 70s, low 80s because they slow the game down. That's what they want to do. They got big men who can bully ball everybody around. They don't have that kid from North Carolina State who is just a freak, if you will. I was almost as big as that boy, not as tall, but I couldn't play like that. But they're going to have to make them come out on the perimeter, make those big guys guard the perimeter for Alabama to even have a shot. And I will be the first to admit I didn't have Alabama getting out of the round of 32. I had them advancing one round and getting beat by St. Mary's in the round of 32. Alabama made it out of there. St. Mary's didn't even make it to the round of 32. So I was wrong on that. I'm happy to admit it. I'm happy to tell you that I didn't have Alabama getting this far, obviously, and I had Purdue and UConn playing each other in the championship. My bracket is shot to heck and back, but I would be glad if Alabama is able to pull this out. Now, there's one guy on this panel that boys, if we might have to. What was it? What was it that you said a few weeks ago, Greg? I think you said be like Catholic nuns and take that ruler and wrap it around your knuckles. We're gonna have to do that to you because you immediately text us within like moments of that final buzzer sounding the other night and said you're going to Phoenix.
Yes, sir. That's what I did the last 4 minutes. I held my finger over the button to buy the tickets. Like, okay, come on, come on. Didn't do it before the game was actually hit 0, even though we got up.
Oh, thank God.
It was like, okay, come on.
I kid you not, folks. He sent the text and then immediately, what do you guys want? What would you like as a souvenir from Arizona? And my immediate reply is a ticket. I want a ticket.
It ain't the ticket; that's the expensive part.
I know.
Yeah, no, it's the flight.
Well, look, I'll tell you this. All I want is for Greg to be elated and to come home over a tied victory. That's all I want because I don't want to fly and spend that amount of money and see them get a beat down.
Well,
so
here's my track record, but I did something on purpose this time to try to keep that mojo going. I went out to the 2018 football championship out in California when Clemson just throttled us. You know, we were down by 20 something. So that's my track record with that. But here's what I've done. I bought my flight tickets Friday through Sunday. Okay. So I didn't even have us. I'm like, oh, well, we're not going to beat UConn. I'm not even going to buy a ticket. I'm going to go ahead and get my flight out Sunday evening. So that's what I've done to try to, exactly.
Good.
Because then I'll have to change my flights, buy another ticket for the finals. So I'm kind of, I'm trying to reverse it that way.
So if Alabama doesn't, and that's sort of a smaller if than the bigger if they win, then you will be on the podcast next week to tell us how the trip went, right?
Yeah, I will. I'll get back early Monday morning because the flight out wasn't bad. It's direct. The flight back here, I've got something like 27 layovers. I go all over the United States before I get back to Atlanta. It was really ugly trying to find a flight.
Yeah.
So we might have to replace your "Where Was" T-shirt segment there with "How was the Final Four?" because none of us are getting to go. But that kind of indicates what your raw emotion in the moment kind of was. As you counted it down, you said you had your finger over the button ready to hit it, just in case the buzzer sounded and Alabama was on top, whether it by 2 or whether by 20. Well, I got to tell you, I've been waiting on something like this, and folks may not realize this. Basketball is my second favorite sport, and for me, it's kind of close to football. I love football more than any other sport, but basketball is right up there. And I think, Greg, you've said it. I think you said you're more emotionally involved with basketball than you are any other sport. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, football's my favorite sport. I love it. I Alabama football. But I went to Tuscaloosa. I started in January of '81.
Yeah.
So I got Bear Bryant's last 2 years. So nothing spectacular. I mean, we were good, but we weren't great. So along those lines, see us lose to Vanderbilt, see us lose to Auburn, saw a lot of losses. But that was the first year that Wimp started. Very first year we go to the Sweet 16. So we had more fun at at basketball games at Coleman. And back then it was actually, believe it or not, with Wimp there, it was full. It was 16,000 almost every game. So even some of the smaller out of conference games would have a whole lot of people there. And they let us do a lot more stuff back then. At halftime, we threw Frisbees around. So you had to keep your head on a swivel or you're going to get whacked in the face. Beach balls. It was just a fantastic atmosphere. So I guess and Alabama football is important to me, but I love Alabama basketball. I mean, I get much more emotionally involved. I get much more, for lack of a better term, pissed off at them, things like that than I do. Football.
Yeah. So let's transition just a hair and go to the team up in Knoxville who fell to Purdue. We were texting back and forth during this game on Easter Sunday. This actually, frankly, turned out to be a much more competitive ball game than honestly I thought it would be. I kind of felt like Purdue was going to go in there and kind of steamroll, for lack of a better word, being the Boilermakers and their things a train. I kind of felt like they were just going to steamroll UT when, in fact, Tennessee made it. I think it was your comment, a physical ball game.
Yeah, well, Tennessee is the last several years, especially, has played really physical basketball. I know a couple of matchups with Alabama, especially in Knoxville. Man, it was physical, and so they play physical basketball. And I think we can question officiating and stuff. I think they get the friendly whistle in Knoxville a lot, and I did not think that Tennessee could compete with Purdue. I actually picked Tennessee to beat Purdue. So there goes my bracket. There's the only sliver of hope I have is UConn. But you know, they had to play physical to compete. Now they fouled the bleep out of Zach Edey. A lot of those are fouls. A lot of Tennessee, wah, wah, wah. A lot of Tennessee people whining about the foul count. And normally, I would say this, that if you see total team fouls or number of free throws, and there's this huge discrepancy like there was on Sunday, I'll tell you some of that's BS. There's no way two teams play that much different defensively that there'll be that many fouls, that big of a difference. But here's the exception. Nobody plays basketball like Purdue anymore. Where Alabama dribble drives, kick out to the corners, they're looking to get either layups or it's inside out basketball. Well, Purdue plays inside out basketball as well. But that offense goes through Zach Edey, posting him up. And listen, you're overpowered. If they were letting him catch the ball around that little arc right there under the goal, if he catches the ball there in the block, you're done. There's nothing you can do but foul. So I think some of that was because of the type of basketball that Purdue plays. That's why there were so many fouls.
33 free throw attempts for Purdue and only 11 for Tennessee.
Yep. Yeah.
And only one foul on Edey, which is kind of crazy. But listen, here's my thing with
total
officiating.
team fouls on Tennessee and 12 on Purdue.
My biggest complaint with the referees, and it's been, I guess the call's not even there anymore, but is this 3-second call. Because if you watch him and the guy from North Carolina, man, they never get out of the lane. If you let Edey or that other guy, those guys stand in the lane, you're not going to be able to stop them. You can't. Because they're going to, like you said, they're playing that inside out, posting him up like you said, nobody had. It's been since Robinson and Akeem the Dream and all those guys since people really played basketball like that. But if you don't make that 3-second call, which I think I saw one this last weekend, man, they're just going to dominate you. It's going to be so hard to do anything.
So I'm not defending the officials, but I think this plays into it. Nobody plays that type of basketball anymore. And so a 3-second call, how many times you see it? Yeah. Right. So that I think with all the other things, they're not even paying attention to it. So when they do play a team, when a team like Purdue plays, especially that officiating crew in that tournament, probably never officiated one of his games, at least not this year. I think that could be an oversight on their part. And again, I'm not defending officials because they irritate me to no end, but that could be part of it.
Well, Drew, Nick Pringle kind of does the same thing. I don't know about you, but the other night when we were watching it, there were several moments I'm in my brain. I never said it out loud. I couldn't hardly scream because Drew's daughter was in the back trying to go to sleep for the evening. But in my brain, I'm screaming, "Get out of the paint! Get out of the paint! They're gonna call the 3-second on you." I don't know if you felt that same way, Drew, but I see that from Nick Pringle a lot when Grant Nelson ends up. If Alabama's played in a slower pace game, if they're forced to play slower, Grant Nelson kind of does it too. I get worried about it, but I think one thing that I'm noticing is that there's very few officials that are going to call it now. I don't know why that is, but
if you're not going to call it, or if it's not called, let's talk about it from Ned Oates' perspective. He's all about analytics, right? If it's only called 10 or 5% of the time, and your offense is 60% more efficient, if you have somebody standing right there, because then that front defender doesn't know which way the screen is going to come from. I do it every time.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, right. And you can run your whole offense off of somebody standing right there, your primary ball handler coming down. They don't know which way. That defender doesn't know which way the screen is coming from.
Yeah.
And then you're running your plays off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what Alabama's done, I think, a lot of this tournament. Pringle or Nelson comes out there and screens to start a dribble drive.
Let me ask you guys this question. Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to kind of off the same subject here a little bit, but back with basketball. What I find the most exciting about this team and this run in the tournament is how each game somebody new has stepped up and taken it over. where it was Grant
Yes.
Nelson against Carolina. Then you got, Pringle this last game, Diabate the game before that, how somebody else has came in to fill a role that you haven't seen them do. That I think actually they're playing up to their potential, and it's been somebody new every time. That's what I've really liked about this team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Stevenson as well.
Yeah, I was just
Stevenson
about
as
to bring
well.
him up.
Stevenson, yeah.
Career high against Clemson, 19 points.
Yeah.
When Grant Nelson gets 2 fouls in like the first 3 minutes or whatever and ends up going to the bench, I think I told Drew. I think I said something about Stevenson is going to have to step up because everybody's going to sort of look at Pringle. He's sort of that next guy behind Nelson, so it's going to have to be someone they're not expecting. And sure enough, he had a career high in points, 19 points, and he's supposed to be. By the way, I remind you, he's supposed to be getting ready for his prom. He's supposed to be in high school, still as a senior, but he's a freshman on the basketball team. I want to ask you guys one question before we move on to the girls' side of things here. Did you guys realistically, let's just be honest, ever see Alabama being the final SEC team in this tournament when you had Tennessee as the regular season SEC champion, Auburn winning the SEC tournament, although that tournament, the first 3 seeds were out after one game. Honestly, I did not see Alabama being the final SEC team toting the banner.
I think I had Kentucky, Florida, and Tennessee they're all getting knocked out. I had them all get knocked out, but it was way later than Alabama.
Yeah.
I think if anybody of us says we thought Alabama was going to be there, we're not exactly telling the truth. I mean, I wanted them there, but the way the team was playing down the stretch and all, I had them going out in the second round too. So
I think this ends up being the very definition of catching fire at the right time.
Yes.
And how basketball is that type of sport. Football, you get it in football, but with so few games, whether it's at the high school, college, or professional level compared to basketball, when some of these college programs are playing 35 games before they even get into the tournament, that kind of stuff. I think it's a far cry different. But when you get into the basketball realm, I think a lot of this is important as to why Nate Oates and company played such a tough non-conference schedule like they did, even though they lost those big 3 games and came into conference play like 5-3 or 6-3 or something like that, 6-4, whatever it was. But I also think that in spite of that drought there where they lost 4 of their last 6 games, even going into the SEC tournament, now looking back on it, I didn't understand it. I didn't feel that way. But now looking back on it, I'm like, that was really prepping Alabama for what they have to do now. And for Tennessee to win the regular season, Auburn to win the SEC tournament, and now Alabama to be the lone banner toter, if you will, of the Final Four for the SEC. I think it kind of brings out sort of the toughness, maybe I should say, of not only the team, but the SEC as a whole, because the SEC took shellackings big time on that first weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, major butt whooping as a conference. 8 teams got in, only 3 survived, took a major butt whooping. And then now Alabama to go and do what they did with North Carolina, Clemson. I don't care what you got to say, Clemson. That was a rematch. That's tough to do. So I had to ask.
Now, well, I had probably lower expectations. I didn't think they could win in the first round of the NIT as the season ended there, much less get in. I mean, I'm serious. They didn't.
Right.
They played. They didn't look engaged. They didn't look like they cared. And
I think at one point we were questioning if something had happened in the locker room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I said I thought there was a fight is what happened to Weitzel and Griffin. I thought they'd gotten a fight instead of just knocking heads.
So one thing to wrap it up on this end of it for me is those games, they can either kill you or they can make you better.
Yep.
And it's up to them. And sometimes when, it's like with our parents used to tell us this, and this, don't do this, whatever. And you say, and then you what's the saying now? And I'm not going to use the language. You mess around and find out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. Yeah. Like I said earlier, Oates it's not like he's been telling them not to play defense. He's been preaching the message all year that, guys, we've got to defend playing this type of basketball, and we got to defend the whole game.
Well, Alabama doesn't want to make it a half-court game.
No, I think that them getting their rear ends handed to them in these SEC games, them flaming out at the end of the season, I think it finally is like, oh, okay, now I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the tournament is you can finish that way, but if you just get in, if you just get in, you got a chance, and that's what they've done.
It's new. It's new life. It's new life. Well, speaking of
NC
new
State's
life,
another example of that.
Yep.
Too.
Well, speaking of new
It's-
life, Iowa got new life on the women's side of the bracket when they had another opportunity at LSU after losing to LSU in last year's national championship. They met in the Elite Eight to go to the Final Four, and I got to admit, what do they call her? Bayou Barbie, Angel Reese, and LSU before the game. I'm not even going to get into the national championship or the national anthem talk. Rather, I'm not even going to get into that because I think there's too many varying opinions on that. But what I will say is Angel Reese came out during warmups and put a crown on the bench right in front of Caitlin Clark. Now, what that's supposed to symbolize, I don't know, couldn't care less, but to me, I view that as arrogant. I didn't watch the game, but I have seen the highlights. Caitlin Clark could not be stopped against LSU. Those there were shots that I'm going, oh my gosh. She should have no way of being able to make that with a hand in her face, period. And it's not like LSU played bad. I went back and watched like a 20-minute video of the game, just kind of a massive, quick breakdown of it, if you will. And at one point they had the lead, but she went off and carried Iowa to the Final Four. She is sort of the darling of basketball right now. Would you guys agree to that?
That's who they want to be, the darling of basketball.
True.
I mean,
Well, I saw
she has scored a lot of points. Don't get me wrong. Best scorer ever.
On the girls' side.
Yes.
Okay.
But you mean to tell me I think LSU's coach is smarter than to just leave a 5'7" Haley Van Lith on Caitlin Clark the whole game and just sit back and let her score 41 points. Come on.
Well, I will say this. I agree with that. I think she had a game plan, and I've seen this happen before when you have prolific scorers. They say, we're going to let her get hers, and then we're going to shut everybody else down, and we'll outscore them because we've got enough as a team. I've seen that happen. It backfired because not only did she get hers, but you had a couple other of their players in double figures. You don't score 90. I mean, it was still – she scored 41. They scored 94. So it's 53 points. Yeah. So that was 53 points, though, that came from her teammates. Her assist. If you look at their team assists and assists, she was dishing it out. So it backfired. If they could have shut everybody else down, yes, they would have won that game. No doubt. They would have won that game. But they were unable. Not only could they not shut Caitlin Clark down, but they couldn't kind of shut the rest of the team and their scoring down. And that's where you run into trouble.
And here's my take on the women's Final Four. Ain't none of them beating South Carolina.
Oh, well, they're good.
They're undefeated.
Yeah, they're good.
What are they, 36-0, 37-0?
Yeah. So
Caitlin Clark, let me just give you her stats really quick. 41 points, as has been mentioned. She was 13 of 29 from the field goals, 9 of 20 from three-point range, so almost 50% from three-point land. 7 rebounds, 12 assists. So she was 3 rebounds shy of a triple-double. Affolter had 16. Martin had 21. They only got 5 bench points. So it was mainly the starters that did majority of the work, and really Clark.
I only played 7, I think.
8.
They
put 8 on the floor. and they got a thin roster apparently, but 12 assists. You don't get an assist. Let me make sure folks understand this. In basketball, doesn't matter men or women, you don't get an assist, Greg, unless the person you pass it to almost immediately takes and makes a shot.
Yeah.
And for her to get 12 assists, which means she assisted on 12 makes other than her own, I mean, you don't see that in the men's side hardly anymore. Mainly the boys' side are getting rebounds and points their own selves. You don't see a lot of assists racking up for an individual player on the men's side of the bracket.
No, not at all. And I'll be honest with y'all guys, I didn't watch 1 second of any of this women's tournament. Caitlin Clark, great scorer, maybe the best women's basketball player ever, college. But there's just too much drama goes on for me. It's like everything else with them. You know, it's this coach, this reporter said something bad about me, and you know,
Are you talking about the LSU coach Kim Mulkey?
I'm talking about the LSU coach. I'm
particular
talking
is
about the South
one.
Carolina coach.
Them too.
Pretty much anybody. It's, there's always somebody doing something.
Yeah.
And I just you know, I don't know.
I will say this. I will say this to that. I was going to bring up the coaching, that aspect of it. I will say this. We're kind of sort of attempting to be in media here. Adam is. We're just a bunch of jokers that like to get on here and talk. But
Hey, we're all
you know,
just a bunch of jokers just talking.
So much of the story gets. We don't know those people. I'll just say that. We don't know that coach.
No,
we don't know Angel Reese. We don't know any of them. We don't know the teams we like. And so much of it gets, and just like I said last week about, talking about Bruce Pearl, I don't know Bruce Pearl. He may be a great guy. If he came into Applebee's down there with Greg and, and we sit and have a meal or a drink or whatever the case may be, he may be the greatest guy ever. The personalities, and that gets conveyed by the media. That gets conveyed by those cameras being there and by those stories being written. And so I one thing I did, and look, Kim Mulkey came out a few weeks ago with a jacket on that had Coca-Cola in neon down it, and obviously our company paid her money to wear that. I don't know, because that's part of our company down there. But I will say this: I give her credit. I'm sure if we really got to know, we may dislike her more than we think we do. I don't know that, but I will give her credit for defending her players. And calling BS on some of these articles from people that don't know anything, and they're just trying to come up with a narrative or a story that gets buzz and attention. And so, same thing for South Carolina coach. I don't agree with everything.
I like how she approached that SEC championship scuffle they had.
Yeah,
I did like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. I do agree with that, but. I don't know. It like Kim Mulkey said this past week. Hey, these are kids. They're kids. They're 18-year-old, 20-year-old, and they're flawed and just like we are. So I've softened up a little bit, I reckon, over the last few weeks. Now I don't like the drama either. I'd rather just watch basketball.
Yeah,
and
that's it for me. Is I don't want to talk about. I'm here to watch basketball.
If we tune in to watch it, we don't want to hear about the article this week. We don't want to see all that stuff. Just like when we were watching NFL football, if we were watching the Chiefs, we don't want to see.
Bring it up. I knew it.
We don't want to see. Look, we still today we don't want to see Taylor Swift. She don't want to be seen at that point. We don't want to see Taylor Swift. If I go to a Taylor Swift concert, and I would, you can knock me if you want to, I would go to one. I don't want to see Travis Kelce. Because I'm there for a different reason. I don't want to see him up there. I don't want to see him doing anything. So that's what I'm saying. You give us sports when it's supposed to be sports, and then give us entertainment when it's supposed to be entertainment. I don't have to have a story.
There's plenty of TV shows that I can watch to get drama.
Yes.
I think we're just now getting entertaining here in this episode of Five Focus, the podcast, episode 8. Speaking of getting entertaining, let's move right along to the Where Was Greg t-shirt segment. Greg, who you sporting and repping this week?
All right. We've got, let's see here, if y'all can see this. Fordyce.
Fortis.
Fordyce.
Red Bugs.
The Red Bugs. That's in Arkansas. Can anybody, and I'm going to be very disappointed, can anybody of you three tell me the significance of the Fordyce Red Bugs? Oh, guys. Y'all are young,
Hang on.
though. I'll give you a little. Go ahead and Google it.
I want to know. I want to
Yeah.
preface this by saying if I do guess correctly, it's because I looked it up. No. Go ahead, Greg.
I don't have a clue. I couldn't even give you a guess.
This high school has one really famous alumni. His name would be Paul Bear Bryant. Is a graduate of Fordyce High School. And it's kind of cool. I've got the pictures, but they've still got it. They've got a picture of him not on the press box, but on the concession stands. And, they're very proud that he went to school there. Really cool. Small school. It's like a 1A school. Facilities look like a 1A school, but it was so cool to go there and again, see his picture, blasted all over the stadium. I don't think it was Bryant Stadium. I'm trying to remember what the name of the actual stadium was. I'll have to go back and look at my pictures. But it was a great experience seeing him there and, trying to get pictures of it because it was locked up. So I was trying to zoom in to get pictures of him and things like that. But South Arkansas, I guess it's kind of Southeast Arkansas. And the Fordyce Redbugs. We call them chiggers here, but, Redbugs, chiggers, it's the same.
Let's move on to our 10 Minutes of Crap segment. And I'm going to kick things off this week by simply doing the chop because I'm still excited over the way that the Braves have started the season. The bats are just as hot as what they were last year when they left off. The pitching has been a little bit lack in some areas, but it's just the start. And plus, one game, the opening day actually got moved due to weather, and then they had a game against the White Sox earlier this week where it got rain delayed in like the 7th or the 8th inning. So Max Fried needed some help, but yeah. So, but I'm still pumped at the way that Major League Baseball has gotten underway, and especially for the Bravos. I'm looking at the standings as I speak, and the National League East appears to be a little weak right now because the Braves are the only one in the East with a winning record at 3-1 as of recording. Philadelphia at 1-3, Washington at 1-3, the Mets 0-4. And the Miami Marlins 0-5. And by the way, we don't like the Mets. To me,
No.
The Mets are the Auburn of Major League Baseball. I'm just saying.
Oh wow!
I'm just saying.
Phillies.
I'll say Phillies up there too.
No, Phillies for me are Tennessee.
So let me just say this: opening day, the Phillies. I'm like, I hate the Phillies. I don't know why. I just hate the Phillies.
Bryce Harper.
And Bryce Harper, and they took a lead, and I didn't text during that, guys, but I was already ranting and raving. These jokers, man, I'm getting rid of but those bats came alive.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about Fried. He didn't start out. His start the other day was horrific.
Didn't even pitch a full inning. Pitched 2/3 of an inning.
Yeah, he threw 40 plus pitches in the first inning, and you don't want to do that. But first game of the season.
Chris Sale. I know they lost that game, but
yeah. All right, Drew, take off. What's on your mind?
Oh gosh, I was hoping you'd pick me last. Move on. Pick somebody else. I gotta get
Greg,
some.
Serenade us.
I'm almost be like Drew. I'm gonna try to find something because I'm just still in such elation.
Oh my
over
gosh!
the final four.
Look, I give it to me. I got it. Give these jokers a minute.
Here's the baton. Wait. Hang on.
Yeah,
here's the baton.
Faltered.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, we've made mention over the last couple of weeks, and this is not really rant, but UFL football started this weekend, and we were talking about it before we started recording, and watched our Birmingham team, two-time USFL champion, play the defending XFL champion, the Arlington Renegades. I thought the football was pretty good, guys. I really did. Is it the NFL? No. But I did like the football. I love Birmingham, Alabama having a professional football team. I really do love that. And, you guys know I follow pro wrestling and do a podcast, and wrestling fans are the worst because they want to talk about ratings, the ratings of of Monday Night Raw and the ratings of AEW Dynamite. And they talk about ticket sales and all this stuff. I'm on a lot of these pages and stuff, and I'm like, the same thing's happening with this UFL. We had some of the same. The attendance sucked and the ratings and blah blah blah. The football's terrible and all this stuff. And I'm like, why can't we? And I say we, and we get riled up watching our favorite teams and stuff. And I think that's part of the fun of it. As long as you don't take it too far, and we have a good time with it. We're done texting back and forth. It's not life or death. Why can't we just enjoy stuff? We all love football here. We've got football in the spring, which, by the way, before I really started paying attention to baseball, was the worst time of the year because football was over. Basketball, really, I could care less about NBA basketball until you get about the second round of the playoffs, and that's when they wake up and decide, well, I guess I need to earn my money, and it's more competitive. We've got football. We've got football in Alabama. We've got a championship team that has a history all the way back to Greg and I's time, 1983, that has a history. And why can't we just enjoy stuff? Enjoy sports. Quit critiquing it. If you are, just have fun. Just do it for fun. That's why I do it. That's why I carry on and go, oh boy, and because at the end of it, I'm enjoying it. I'm not hating it. I'm not getting worked up into a frenzy. Just enjoy football this spring. Don't gripe if it goes away. If you didn't watch it, if you didn't buy a ticket, which by the way, guys, those tickets are very affordable for good seats. Alabama loves
I think
football.
we're going to try and go down. And
the 20th, yes,
as a group. So, and I'll say this too, like Drew mentioned earlier, we got to, I think it made it in the podcast anyway. We got to be in Trustful over the weekend and watch it at some event area where they do some concerts and things of that nature. And they've got a massive, I don't know how many inches, I don't know how many feet that thing stands, TV out there that they had the game on. And we got to watch it while we sat and had lunch with some family. And I had totally forgotten about some of the presentation aspects of the game and the way they do it on TV, some of that in-depth access that you don't get in NFL games, the drone flying around. My wife, Beverly, at one point asked me if that was a bit like a big bug you could see crawling around in the field. I said, no, honey, that's the shadow of the drone off the sun because there's a drone flying around. And instead of having just that mounted camera on the rods and strings there, that camera can go anywhere and get anything. You get in the huddle, you hear the coaches talking. Yep. I like the fact that you can hear the coaches more than anything getting on a player, because to me, it makes it feel more like football, because spring football is for college fans, that means A-Day, and that's about it, whether it's for Alabama or Auburn. But when you talk about actual having football, spring doesn't quite fit into the into the Rolodex, if you will, for people to talk about football. And then when you can actually watch it and see the coach getting onto I saw Skip Holtz, for instance, just come unglued on a dude because he missed the assignment, and they had it going into a timeout. They had him, just waylaying on him, and he wasn't saying nothing nasty. He wasn't vulgar about it. Yeah, but he was basically like, "What did we practice all week?" He was getting all over him, and that's what I want to see. That to me makes it real football. It's not just a clown show. It's real football.
Yeah, and I will say some of their innovation. I think the yardage marker, the true line that they have now instead of bringing the chains, I think that's a great innovation. I love hearing the play call. I think they got to dial their audio in a little bit. There was some of that drone flying around made me nauseous at one point, But there's a few things that they got to dial in. But here's the final point for me. There's a lot of dudes that gave up a lot to try to be pros, to try to make it, that didn't get there. Maybe they had their time and they got cut. There's a lot of guys that are getting a chance to play football and show what they can do, and that's a cool thing as well. And you're not going to see the starting center catch a touchdown pass, a 40-plus yard touchdown pass from the punter in the NFL. That's all I'm going to say. That was great.
All right, boys, who's next? Drew, Greg, you got something?
Man, I tell you, I've just been cloud nine over the Final Four that I'm not angry about anything. Nothing's bugging me. I guess the only thing I can talk about somewhat is, and JJ, I'll ask you this because you were one of the bigger naysayers. Does this vindicate Coach Oates' style? He was talking about that in I think the Hey Coach thing. Somebody asked him, "What's your opinion on that? Does this kind of validate his style, or is it still
Well, I mean, if you win a champ, yeah, I mean, first time ever to get the Final Four, I still think it's going to be difficult to get a team to lock in and play defense the way that they need to play defense to win a championship going forward. Now, they may win it this year, but this team has got dialed in. It's very difficult to get players, the type of players that he recruits to play, and we talked about this last week, to play at that level. In my mind, hey, what do I know? I'm sitting here ranting and raving, wanting Bucky McMillan to be the coach. And I don't know anything. But I do say yes, because what else? I mean, Bruce Pearl, Auburn thinks Bruce Pearl is the greatest coach to ever coach basketball, and he got to a Final Four, and that's all he did.
That's the only time he's been to the Sweet 16 with Auburn. I mean, you look at that head-to-head, and it's really ugly. Oates is dominating that part of it.
Yeah, so I think in the eyes of Alabama basketball fans, unless you're just really negative, like I said, and you're not just trying to enjoy the moment, enjoy it. I'm enjoying it. I mean, I was griping all year. I'm enjoying this. I think it vindicates him to me. Now, again, you got to defend. That message has to permeate for 40 minutes. You can't just take it off. I still think they need to run half court offense a little. I think time in the game and situation is something that's missing. I think that's what's been missing. The style of basketball, I'm fine, but then when you get down and you got a lead and there's 2 minutes left and you run down the floor and you jack up a quick 3-pointer when you got a really small lead, and you don't at least run a little clock, get a little movement, look for a better 3-point shot. I'm not saying don't take a three. I'm saying take the best 3-point
Take
shot.
the open, yeah. Well, that's what his offense is.
Yeah.
His offense doesn't really revolve around the three. That's the third shot.
No.
He wants to drive the goal. He wants to shoot free throws. And then the third best shot, analytically wise, again, is going to be the three. But it's funny. He was talking again on the Hey Coach thing, and they were talking about how he could beat UConn. He said something along the lines, well, obviously we don't play defense, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to get him to step up.
Right. Well, I will say this. In that Clemson game, the last 2 or 3 minutes, they kind of went into that mode of let's run some clock.
Yes.
Let's hold the ball out way past the 3-point line for a second, wait till about 12, 15 seconds on the shot clock, and then let's move around and try to come up with something. So I will say that. I do got 1 point off of basketball because it just hit my brain. Because, Greg, I got to looking at your screen, and I remembered something, and I've been meaning to ask you this for 3 or 4 weeks now. Have you not gone and seen Coach Benefield and gotten that helmet he promised you?
No, I have not. I've got to go. I've got to go get it. Yeah, I've got to go up there. I'm off on Thursday. I may try to do it. I just haven't had a chance to go up there.
He specifically pulled me to the side for me to tell you to come by and get that helmet signed by the 2023 state champions.
I'm going to get it because I'd love to have it
in the background because
I
vehemently love something you said.
Yeah,
I won't repeat it. But he loved because it's your quote. You can repeat it if you want. Talking about a specific rivalry that won't exist for the next 2 years, but at minimum. But he loved your blunt response to it. So, folks, if
I still think it's
we're talking about,
I still think it's the truth.
Episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, it is. It's the truth.
I don't have a way to show it, but I do still have mine.
Hey, yeah.
There it is.
Yes, sir.
There it is. Drew, let me hold that up one more time there, Drew.
Yeah, I'm missing. I can't see Drew.
Drew,
there it is.
Yes, sir.
Talk to us, Drew.
You hear me?
Yeah, there it goes. Now it flipped. Now show us that helmet. We wanted to. There you go.
There we go.
There. Yep.
Still got the Super 7 sticker on it.
All right.
Anyway,
Drew, you got something?
Mine's going to be short. So JJ's talking about spring sports, how spring sports are not, or some people find it hard to be entertaining to listen. If you have not been, I don't care if you're an Alabama fan, I don't care if you're an Auburn fan, if you live close to UAH, live close to any college, go watch a college baseball game.
Mhm.
I've never been.
It's fun. I promise. Like, and
I've been
cheap.
to a
I think
softball.
I think to go to an Alabama baseball game, it's like $18-20.
Oh, if that, yeah.
Yeah, to get
It's
that's a
cheap.
good game.
Yeah.
That's like Tennessee or South Carolina.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Alabama's pretty good this year
Yeah,
in
like
baseball.
14th in the nation with a brand new head coach.
Yeah, they're 21-7.
So,
Listen, all the teams in the SEC are good, so it's kind of hard to tell. They've
Yeah.
won the season series, or they won a series against Tennessee, and they've won a series against South Carolina. Tennessee was ranked in the top 5 when they won the series against them. Well, in the middle of those two series, they got swept by Georgia, but
I was gonna say that's the anomaly there. I couldn't figure that one out.
I guess
Georgia
Georgia's good this year too.
Yeah, they're not bad.
So Arkansas is still good. LSU's not good after winning it last year. LSU's not good.
Yeah.
They're 2-7
Arkansas
in SEC play
So Arkansas is number 1
in the West.
nation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And they're number 1 in the nation too.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
They're ranked
they are.
number 1.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Drew. I was just gonna say on baseball. There, go ahead.
I mean,
finish your thought.
and high school baseball in the playoffs is fun to go watch too.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're
That's-
not far
that's
from
what-
it, by the way. We're over halfway through the high school baseball season already.
Yeah.
You're getting close-
you're getting
close to the playoffs.
the back third here of it.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I've never been to a college baseball game, but I fell in love with softball as a young kid because my sister played it, was very into it for a very long time, was very good at it. And my dad was one of her little peewee coaches and wanted to involve me in like the dugout. So I was like the dugout manager or something like that. But I ended up really falling in love with it. Beverly and I try to go at least every other year to an Alabama softball game or two. We really enjoy being out there because it's just fun. Those types of atmospheres, and I would imagine that baseball sort of the similar fashion, if you will, as what Alabama and softball is with Coach Patrick Murphy. It's been how many years now since they won a national championship? Close to 10, I think. But still, I mean, they're always in contention to win something. But I do got to get down to a college baseball game. But anyway, boys, as we begin the downhill slide to wrapping this puppy up, we get into our new or our final segment, rather. It's not new, called What's Upcoming at Fife, and JJ gets us started this week.
Yeah, so right now the annual FFA greenhouse sale, it starts April the 8th from 8 till 3, and they'll have different types of plants, ferns, tomato plants, pepper plants. It's almost getting garden time, so they'll have those along with mosquito and aloe plants. Approximately 4,000 plants are up for sale, and you need to get out there. It's getting planting time for sure. And you can get more information on the Fife High School and the Red Devil Radio Show Facebook pages. So it's I can't believe it. My folks have already got a garden back here and got some things planted, and I'm like, I thought it was winter.
And speaking of high school, specifically baseball and softball, Greg.
Well, today the varsity and the JV softball will take on Cherokee County, and then the varsity is heading over Friday and Saturday to play at a tournament in Gadsden State before they come back home on Monday to host Scottsboro in a varsity only matchup. First pitch is at 4:30. Then you turn to baseball, and you got the varsity and JV team are both heading to Brindley Mountain tomorrow. First pitch for that game is 4:30, and then the JV returns home Monday with a doubleheader against Geraldine. First pitch 4:30. Again, go out and support these kids. They're playing just as hard. I know it's not as popular as football or basketball, but they deserve our attention. They deserve us out there cheering them on.
Yeah.
So
I want to say
can
this.
I add right there? Can I add right there, Adam?
Well, let me throw this out there just for a quick second because we normally record this on Mondays. They were supposed to have a game on Tuesday. With the weather, it got canned. At the time of recording this, we do not have any updated information on those games getting moved. You do? Go for it.
Yeah,
Go for it, then. Go for
Yeah,
it.
that's what I wanted to add. And I will say I went area game against North Sand Mountain, which is right up the road from me here. My nephew plays second base for the varsity team here at North Sand Mountain. I will say that was a fantastic game last night. 5 won 5-4. Fantastic game. They were scheduled to have a doubleheader on Tuesday. They will be playing tomorrow, which is Wednesday. I know this is going to drop They'll be playing tomorrow.
Thursday.
4 o'clock, I think. Doubleheader. I
Okay.
think that's right.
All
You
right.
may have to cut that out, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
So we can at least say that they made sure to get those games in.
Yeah, they've got to their area games, very important area games. So
Got you. Well, gentlemen, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Five Focus, the podcast. And as always, it's been a fun one. It's been a very entertaining one, mainly basketball field, because we're all living off the high that is finally making the Final Four for the first time ever. I cannot wait for next week's podcast to get here, because I am intrigued to hear the stories that's going to come out of Arizona, win or lose, that comes out of Greg's mouth. I can't wait to hear the travel there, the stories, the stories of what actually happened while he was there, and then the travel back stories. We might have to censor some of them, Greg.
I was about to say.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I was about to say, Greg,
I have-
it's too wild.
Listen. The only thing I've looked up is some teams. I saw there's a Desert Scorpions out there, and so I'm gonna be traveling to a couple of high schools
nice.
looking for some
Now,
shirts.
if you find some like the polka dots, if you find
Yeah.
something or that watermelon, if you find something that intriguing, let us know, because there might be one or two of us that's saying, "Hey, we'll pay you $20 to get us a shirt."
You got
I'm
it.
a t-shirt guy. I'm a t-shirt
You got
guy.
I need to update my wardrobe. I'm still living off of a select few shirts. I'm having to give away some of my other shirts, and I still ain't got enough to get me through a whole week, just about it. All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of Five Focus, the podcast. Again, brought to you by Froggy Freeze Shaved Ice, locally owned, locally operated. Again, by two retired educators that span 3 generations of 5 high school graduates. They are also retired educators. Taught the 2 eldest of this panel here this evening, between Greg and JJ. They know them personally. If you need to have a conversation with them, we'll get you hooked up with them. You want them to come out to an event, whether it be church, family, Little League, anything, as I'm losing my voice for whatever reason, give them a call, 256-717-7239. Again, 256, let me slow that down, 256-717-7239. Give them a call, get you some shaved ice. I'm going to have to go get some to patch his throat up, evidently. Maybe too much coffee. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to this each and every week. Next week, again, come back, be with us as we continue on this same path. If Alabama wins Saturday, I'll go ahead and tell the folks this right now, boys. We're not recording Monday. If Alabama wins on Saturday, we will not record on Monday, because all my attention will be on that ball game.
All I'm going to say is this. If by some miracle from the Lord we win a national title or get the championship game, look, when you come back on the air, I'll be shirtless.
Oh, let's hold him to it.
Oh, if you cut me off when you come back, I'll be naked.
From your lips,
Please
look
let us
at the
win.
camera. Your lips to God's ears. Okay, I'm just saying.
Nobody wants to see that. Trust me.
No. I'm with Greg.
It's on there
Let's
now.
hold you
Yeah.
to it.
Oh, yeah, you put it out there.
All right, I'm doing it.
I'm not cutting it out either. It's staying in the pod, man. It's staying in the
Fat
pod.
looks better tan. Fat looks better tan.
You better go hit the tanning bed, bro. Just in case. You better go hit the tanning bed. Oh, my goodness. All right. So not only come back for Greg's stories, but if they win, you know what else to expect from JJ. That's all I'll say.
Nobody
female-
wants.
I bet our female viewership will go way up if you skin off.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Boy, this
No,
week's
there
movie is gonna be very
might actually be one on the air. I'm one watching. I don't know.
All right. For Greg Mears, Drew Sims, Jeremy Johnson, I'm Adam Word saying so long, everyone. May God bless each and every one of you. And as always, go Big Red.